Hi everyone, my name is Liselle, also known as Deja, and today I'm going to be doing a Black History Month reading vlog. It is currently 8 days into February, and I was going to do like this introduction earlier, especially because I have been doing like a lot of things. I have been reading a lot of things, and so I wanted to like at least like start it, but I just haven't really been in the mood to really say anything to the camera. I've been able to like film a few things about like what I've been doing, but for the most part, like I haven't really been in the mood to like really talk to the camera. And that's also the reason why I didn't really have a video up for the first week of February. This Black History Month, I have quite a few things that I want to read. I kind of narrowed it down to like 8 books, which I think is very doable for me, especially because some of them are shorter books, but I narrowed it down to those 8 books. And of course, being a mood reader, I haven't started any of them. I've been picking up other books, and so I'm really hoping that today I will at least start one of the books that I have on my TBR. Some of the readathons that I'm going to be participating in this year is Blackathon, the Missy Elliott Readathon, and For the Culture. Those are usually like the 3 that I try to stick to during Black History Month, and so I kind of worked it out so that all of them I could choose like prompts from some of them that can go with like other books. But like I said, like the first book that I even finished, it wasn't even originally on that TBR that I had for those books that I chose for all 3 of those readathons. But it was one that I really wanted to read and one that I needed to read because of the community book club that I'm participating in. And I finished it last night, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit here. And that is The House of Eve. This book was definitely something. I really like historical fiction, usually because of the like setting and just like the like atmosphere that comes around with being a historical setting. And I liked that about this one too. It follows these 2 different women. So one of them is at a college, Howard University, trying to get her degree and her family and all of that. The other one is 16 that is trying to complete this program that will help her get into college. I think they're both first generation college students, but they're just in different paths of their college journey. And it really deals with a lot of like pregnancy things. One of them is trying to get pregnant and the other one is accidentally pregnant, and they're just trying to navigate that and just the familial things that come with that, just the social consequences of that. And it was definitely starting to get dark towards like the end with like this religious kind of nunnery type of thing. And then one of the girls, like she's dealing with colorism and like a family. And yeah, I was like, it was a really good book. I think I would give it like 4 stars. I think it was just missing a little bit for me just because the story, I feel like by like the halfway point, like I knew where the story was going, and so then it just kept continuing, and I was like, I don't really know why it's continuing. And then I also feel like nothing really happened towards the end that really was like surprising. Like it was just the kind of story that it is like you don't really get surprised by like what's going to happen, especially because like just the kind of story it is, like it's just very predictable. But I will say that like I liked following the characters and I liked following just the historical environment that we were in, and I think that's usually what I go into historicals for anyway. I don't need like a huge like plot twist or anything. And so yeah, I rated this one like 4 stars. The next one that I'm hoping to read while I'm doing all these like chores and stuff is Womb City. I have an ARC of this, which the book already came out, but I got the ARC really late. And so I have this on an audiobook from NetGalley, and I started like the first chapter and it's very interesting. I think I'm still like a little confused on just like this world, but I do know that like the women, they are basically like their bodies are not their own. So like this woman, she is like some kind of like android or something, and I just remember the scene where like her husband was like inputting like a plug or something just to like read her thoughts and just make sure that she's not doing anything, I guess, illegal, because that was like the whole purpose. But then he's really like just probing for all of these other like things, like who is this other guy, like her thoughts are not her own, like her husband has to like see all of these things because it's just part of the process or whatever. But then she also has to go to this like facility and they monitor like just her body responses and stuff to make sure that she's not lying or trying to cover up anything. And so it's just very controlling over her body, which is very fitting. I think it just takes it to like an extreme level. I think like it's very interesting. I'm not sure where the story's gonna go and I don't know, like I'm having a hard time believing that parts of why this stuff was like created was to like control like crime and all of that and like see like the impulses and stuff, but like they put it mainly on women. So I feel like that was just like the excuse for why they would want to put it on women and like see like what's going on in their minds and bodies, rather than men, because I'm pretty sure statistics say that men commit most of the crimes. So yeah. And then there's like this other thing where I don't know, she mentioned something about like this other body and like this other woman like in her body or something, and I think I'm a little confused by that because I'm just like, what is going on? Like, was her consciousness put into like an android body, or was it a different body? Because she said something about how she wished that she got a body that like could bear children or something, and I don't know. I was like, is her consciousness in this android body, or was this android like stuff put into her body? And I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. But so far, I like it. I like the social aspects of it, and it's really making me think a lot about the social things and just like how this world is critiquing a lot of the social aspects that are happening in our world today. But yeah, that's what I've been reading. I also started another arc that I got on NetGalley, and this one is The Smoke That Thunders. This one, not really liking. I feel like the writing could definitely be better. It's from like Norton Readers or something. And so I would think, just because Norton, like I would think the writing would be even better than like a normal traditional publisher or something. But it feels very juvenile to me. Like I really do think that it's YA, but maybe younger YA, because it's not quite middle grade. And I don't really like how like it's very heavy on the women impression, like how they're only for women getting like married. It's in this like African culture, and I wouldn't say it's Nigerian just because most things are Nigerian when it comes to like these kinds of worlds, but I don't want to say that wrong, but I do know like they're African based. And so yeah, not loving it. I'm only on chapter 2. I don't know, I'm gonna give it more of a chance, but so far I'm not impressed. But that's it for all of the books that I've been reading so far. I also went to watch the movie American Fiction, and I absolutely loved it. Like I have so many things that I want to like talk about with it, because like so many things were like just making me like think about things a little bit differently. So the story pretty much follows a writer who's like an educator and stuff, and he's kind of like highbrow but doesn't really like pander to like white readers and stuff, and that's really like the main thing with him. And so then there's this other writer, she's just kind of on the side, like she comes in but she really like challenges him, so I really liked her. But this other writer, like she wrote a book, and it's basically how you would think of a stereotypical like Black experience. So her story is pretty much just like following these, I think, women from the hood area, and like her book is a bestseller. The main character, I forgot what his name is. I think Monk. Yeah, I think his name is Monk. But Monk is very upset about this, and just as like kind of a satire, he writes like a book that's taking place in the hood with all this like drug violence and all of this, because this is the story that publishers and just white America really wants, because it's so gritty and all of that. But then he ends up selling it for so much money because they're just like, oh, it's gonna be like a bestseller, like it's so gritty, so real and all of this other stuff. And so then he's like faking his identity about pushing the story because it's just like so satire and it's so unbelievable to him. But yeah, it's just basically following this character dealing with like just what kind of fiction they want from Black people. I really enjoyed it, especially because there was this one line where like Issa Rae, who was the other character that wrote the first best-selling book, but she had like a line that was like, potential is, I don't know, what did she say? Like potential is when you think that something that's already there isn't great or whatever, or something like that. And I was just like, wow. I've always been very like interested in just like the stories that we tell, especially because I am a writer, and just as like my own personal like writing experience, like I feel like it has changed like so much. Like I started off writing like very contemporary like romance things that had like familial drama and stuff like that, but I think I moved towards a like fantasy kind of kick, and now I still battle with like showing like the Black experience and showing like a better future for us. And so I'm just like, that dynamic is very interesting to me, and I feel like they were playing with that dynamic a lot. And I feel like this movie like really just made me understand that as much as I don't really want to see more books and movies and stuff about the Black experience and just like the trauma that's associated with it, I want to see like the beauty and Blackness as well. Like I understand why those stories exist. Like you're showing people who for some reason still don't know like just the inequalities that come with race in general. Like you're showing all of these race inequalities that come with just being different from white, and it helps to like validate that like what you're experiencing isn't like fake and like all of that. But I want to see more of a balance where we see like the joy of being a Black person as well. Like everything that's a Black person isn't just like the race trauma. So I think that really put it into perspective. And I think I mentioned this before, but Daughters of Jubilation, like I think that was like one that really did it great. And I don't know, I feel like the story really just made me think and just solidified like how I think that there should be like both stories. I don't think one should be over the other. Now for me, I'm definitely going to want more joyful fantasy based stories than like the other ones, because I'm just getting tired of it, to be honest. But yeah, that was like my long-winded way to say that I really enjoyed the movie, and I actually have the book because it is based off a book, which I did not know, but the book feels so relevant because it was written like, I want to say like 2010 or something. Like it was really like written, not like it was written in the 2000s, but I don't know if it was like early 2000s or like mid 2000s. So I have a few other things I want to do. I have to film today. I don't really feel like filming today because I feel like my skin really needs a break, but I don't want to go 2 weeks without a video. So maybe, I don't know, I think I might film today just so I can make my skin breathe tomorrow, since I won't be going anywhere, because I also have a few other things I need to do. A lot of errands to run, which I'm hoping to listen to the audiobook while I am doing all of that. And so yeah, I wanted to come on here and do a semi-quick check-in. This is a very long check-in, but I just wanted to update you guys on like what I was reading, the movie I went to go see, and just like the thoughts that I had about the movie. So I will check in later. Before I even like do all the errands I'm gonna run and all of that, like I wanted to show you that I had a library haul, and I went in there for one book and I came out with way too many. So I'm going to show you. I'm not going to go through every book, but like I really do have a big library problem, which I guess isn't a bad thing because they're free. This is the book that I went into the library for. Short, I was like, it'll fit my mood and all this. I've had it on my TBR for the longest, and I wanted to read it. So this is what I came in for. This is what I ended up getting. Everything else. This one, I definitely wanted to read. I had it before, but I was like, oh, I'm not going to be in the mood for reading it now. But I was like, I'm really in a fantasy mood now, so I wanted to get it. And then, of course, I have the Bridget Collins one. I really liked the Betrayals, so I wanted to try this one. And then I have all of these other fantasy books that, yeah, I have a problem with the library. And that's not even all the books that I have from the library. Do I know when I'm going to get to all of these books? No, I don't even think I'm going to get to all of them before like the due date, but I like having library books, and it's really going against my goal to read what I actually own. But I don't know. I need to figure out a way to not like limit my library intake because I really love using the library, but there's got to be a better way for me to handle it. So now I will go do all the errands and stuff that I need. First, I'm going to go eat breakfast, but then, yeah, I guess we will see. Hello, it has been a minute since I last checked in, and while I haven't finished another book, I have DNF'd a book. And the book that I DNF'd is The Smoke That Thunders. I feel like I mentioned this book before, but just in case I haven't, I have an arc of this book from NetGalley, and I was really excited to read it, not necessarily because of like the concept, but just because I wanted to find this like a hidden gem or something. And this book is definitely not that, at least not for me. I could not get into this writing, and it just got to a point where I feel like the pacing was off. The themes that are represented in this book just feel so surface level and just underdeveloped, and I feel like the author is trying to represent this like super patriarchal society in Africa, pretty sure Nigerian influence, and I feel like it's just being like way too extreme with it. Not as extreme as like Womb City, like incorporating all of the like technology with that, but like I feel like it was just being like, oh, this is like terrible for this main character because this is not what she wants, which I get, but I feel like there's no nuance to it. That paired with the writing, like the actual craft of the writing, I feel like there wasn't really a lot of time to really just like settle into the scene. Like the way that we were transitioning to things just was not working for me at all. And I feel like I wasn't really immersed in the world as well. I'm going to write a written review for it because that's what you have to do for NetGalley. But yeah, I DNF'd that one. Moving on to my next read, I started The Black Veins, and this one is part of the group read for the culture. I'm pretty sure that's what this group read is for, and I happen to have a copy on my shelf because I supported the author when they first released it. So this is the old cover, not the new one. This one, I feel like I'm having mixed thoughts about. The prologue, or it was the overture, my bad, not the prologue, the overture. I was super intrigued with it. Like I thought it really like pulled me in, but then as soon as we got to the main protagonist's point of view, like I just started to disconnect a lot, and I feel like it's her voice a little bit that I'm not really connecting with. But in terms of the plot of this, I feel like I was hesitant to go into it just because I'm not usually a big fan of like traveling stories, and this is pretty much a traveling story. On the back of this, you can see that there's like a van, and pretty much she's traveling in this van to go save her family. She's 16, doesn't really know much about like the magical society at all because her parents decide to leave that group, and they're living in the real world, but like magic is kind of like an everyday type of thing. It's just kind of, it's like parallel world. Like they're still in the same world, but like the magic is hidden from people that are not magic users, but they're still in like everyday society. And so, yeah, it's interesting, but I'm not being gripped by it so far. It's introducing a lot of things with like interesting magic elements that are a part of this world. But yeah, I'm not really like pulled in by it. I feel like it'll be fine, but since I am just such a character driven reader and I'm not really a big fan of this character, pretty sure it's probably going to be a 3 or 4 star. I don't see it getting anything higher than that. But I do want to finish this book this weekend. I don't really have any plans for it. So hopefully I will be able to finish it this weekend, or at least get a good chunk of it done. I'm also still reading Womb City. I don't really have much to update about it, but there was this one scene that was very interesting, and I feel like I was confused because it had the story of reality versus like a vision or something, because she has to be tested for on her like violence level and know whether or not she's going to be committing a crime. And yeah, that was an interesting part. I feel like my thing with this story is that it's a lot of concepts, I feel like, and it goes together, but I feel like it's a lot of like extra details that I'm just like, I keep getting lost in like the central story of what this one is. Plus, I think the only thing that's really like keeping me going right now is because I'm intrigued with this world, but also because of the dynamic between the main character and her husband. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the last clip, but their relationship is just very toxic to me, and it's not like they're trying to romanticize it or anything, but their dynamic is super interesting to me, and I just cannot wait to see just how the end of the book is going to show their relationship and if they're even still going to be together. Like, I don't know where this story is going, and I think that's what's really pulling me towards wanting to finish it. So hopefully I will finish that this weekend, because I have a lot of stuff that I need to actually start doing, and a lot of those things I can be listening to an audiobook. The buddy read for the Missy Elliott readathon, or at least one of the buddy reads, is Delicious Monsters, and I read like the first paragraph of this. It was amazing, and so I really want to get to this as well. I'm hoping to get to this before the end of the month. Do I think I'm going to start it before this weekend ends? Probably not, but I do want to read this. But that is really like my plans for this weekend in terms of my reading. I really want to finish Womb City, and I also really want to finish The Black Veins. But that's all I really have for this update. I just wanted to say like my plans for the reading, because I feel like I haven't really done much reading in this vlog yet, and I really want to do that. So here's to reading for this weekend. I have finished the Black Veins, and I'm going to give this one 3 stars. I feel like if I would have picked this up when I actually bought it, I could have enjoyed it a little bit more, but because I'm a different reader, I feel like this was not that enjoyable for me. So this story follows Blythe Fulton, who is a 16-year-old girl who's like consistently like moving around because her family's always trying to run away from these people that are the erasers. So her family is like pretty settled right now, but there's this incident that happens where Blythe is almost killed because she doesn't have like control of her body, and it becomes this huge thing because it's an attack on her and other guardians, which apparently Blythe is. So there's 6 other guardians, all of them are kids, and there's like 6 different like things that these kids are guardians of. Like there's one for nature, there's one for death, there's one for animals, and just all these other things. And so that's like the setup of like this world. Blythe's family ends up being kidnapped, and she ends up going on this like road trip to try to get them back, and along the way getting all these other guardians to go with her. That's like the gist. A lot of other things happen and it's not like as straightforward. But I think my problem with this is just I'm not really into traveling stories at all, which isn't the book's fault. Like, I went into this knowing that I was going to be that, because it's like getting the gang together is pretty much this entire book, and I'm not a fan of that at all. I feel like the scenes started to get like very repetitive. They would find one guardian, something would happen that made it like difficult, and then they'd be on the road, then they'd find another guardian, something would happen to make it difficult, and then be on the road again. And it was just like that for like a majority of the book, and it was just getting kind of boring to me. And I also feel like this story is really built on the character dynamics. There's all of these like little like one moments that the characters have, and just like who connects with who and all of that. And I feel like that was supposed to make up like all the traveling and stuff, but I just was not interested in that. I wanted more with like the plot, and I feel like the plot wasn't really that strong. Like, I feel like the villains were just very like mustache twirly, and I honestly feel like I didn't really get a ending that I really would have liked. But like, the ending wasn't bad, but like, I don't know, I just feel like all these like little plot threads, like, it wasn't really connecting for me. And then there was like all these things with like these little like world building details and stuff that just felt like kind of random. And I don't know, like, I just feel like if the plot would have been stronger and wasn't like so repetitive, I think I would have liked this a little bit more. If there was a second book out to this, I feel like maybe I'd enjoy it more, especially because all the characters are already together. And so yeah, I would give this 3 stars. I'm definitely going to unhaul it because I'm not going to reread it. But it was fine. If you want a story with like just a band of teenagers like traveling the world and just figuring out their magic and stuff together, a lot of representation in this book too. Pretty sure most of the characters are not white actually, and there's a lot of LGBTQ representation in here. And so yeah, I would say try it out if like found family and like traveling stories are really like your thing. Not really my thing, so yeah, I am going to unhaul this. I haven't really gotten much more into Womb City. I just haven't really been in the mood to really be reading, and so I think the next one that I'm going to pick up is Far Sector. I have this for multiple prompts, for Blackathon, for the culture, and the Missy Elliott readathon. And so this should be like a quick read for me. I'm really excited to try N.K. Jemisin in a graphic novel form. Definitely an iconic author, and yeah, I'm excited. And after Far Sector, I have one other book that I really want to read before the end of the month, but it's a very long book. This book is Delicious Monsters. I have not started this, and I'm pretty sure this is over 500 pages. Or just barely. Oh, yeah, it's just barely over 500 pages. But I don't know, I felt like the Black Veins felt so long that I'm not really in the mood to pick this up right now. And even though I did read like the first paragraph, like, I'm not really in the mood for this, especially because it's like horror, and I'm in the house by myself like a lot of the time, especially at night, because my husband is a night owl. And so I I don't know when I'm going to read this. And yeah, I'm excited to try it though, especially because a lot of people are hyping it up, but I don't know when I'm gonna read it. And I know I need to, because it fulfills so many prompts for all of the readathons that I'm participating in. But yeah, I don't know, we'll see. Let me go make some food, and hopefully I can find something quick to eat for tonight. But yeah, I will check in later. is time for me to update. I took a little bit of a road trip this weekend just as a little weekend getaway, and I actually finished Delicious Monsters by Liselle Sambury. This book, I feel like I have a lot of thoughts, and they're not necessarily bad thoughts, but I'm just like, do I think this is a new favorite? No. Did I enjoy the story? Enjoy is a strong word, but I like the story. So basically in this story, you're following two perspectives. The main perspective is Daisy, who is a 16-year-old girl who can see dead people. And her mom ends up inheriting this house that was passed down to her. Also, 10 years later, there's another perspective, and there's this journalist kind of student who wants to tell Daisy's story. And so you're kind of getting like both, like they're all circling around this house that Daisy's mother inherited. And I'm already very weary of haunted house stories. And so I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to get from this. I just felt like I was just going to be creeped out and stuff. And while it was definitely horror, it had body horror, it had like the ghost element, it also had possession, and it had the haunted house in it. I feel like I wasn't really that scared in it, but I feel like that was because I feel like the main themes of the story really shone through the horror, which is another kind of horror in and of itself. Since this was written for like a younger audience, which that'll be another note later, but since this was written for a younger audience, I feel like I kind of knew what was going to happen, especially if you read the author's note in the very beginning. Like, you kind of know where the story is going to lead. And this book was a lot. It reminds me a lot of Akwaeke Emazi's Pet, and I think because it deals with like very similar things. Like, definitely look up the trigger warnings and the content warnings for this, because it was definitely a lot. I think the most fascinating thing about this story was the mother-daughter relationships, though. There wasn't really like a healthy Black mother and daughter relationship portrayed in this. Like, pretty much all the mothers were pretty toxic. And I don't know if I necessarily liked that, but I feel like that was also playing into the theme of this story, and it really contributed to like a lot of the things that happened. I liked the progression of the story, but I don't know, I feel like this did not need to be 500 pages. I feel like it was definitely meandering a lot, and I don't even think it was till like page 250, maybe even 300, that like the main character Daisy really got into like wanting to do something about this house. And it was just a lot of setup, and like I feel like it was slowly like pulling you there to be kind of like a mystery of like what is going on. Like, I kept wondering like what was going on, but I don't know, I don't think that this needed to be 500 pages. Like, the pacing felt off to me, and I don't know, I definitely think that this could have been shorter. Now, I said that this was written for a younger audience, but honestly, this book was probably written a little bit more mature than like a regular young adult. So I feel like those that are 17, 18, this would be more of like their kind of speed, because not that it deals with a lot of the topics like very heavily and it's not like really on page, but first of all, the characters are pretty much around that age. But I also feel like the pacing of the story, like, it lends itself to being more towards like that kind of audience. And then also just the content, like, I don't know what it was. Like, it wasn't necessarily like the trigger warnings, because as I said with like Pet, like that one was written for like an even younger audience, but that one felt like it was actually meant for that audience. And this one, I feel like the tone of it was definitely a little bit more darker than I would expect for a young adult novel. But I have to say that I found this like story fascinating. I think I would give it like 4, maybe 4.5 stars, because I think Liselle did a very great job like writing this story. I really liked all the reveals and stuff at the end. Although, again, liked is one of those words that doesn't really fit with like the story. Another thing I wanted to point out in this is that like I really liked the inclusion of the Black family that's in this, and I'm not talking about like Daisy's family or Brittany's family and Brittany as the other girl that's the journalist. I'm talking about King and his family. They definitely had some like African spirituality like in like their family, and I really liked that. I also just really liked that he wasn't like a love interest for her. Like they didn't have any attraction for each other, but they were actually just really good friends. Even though she didn't really want friends, but he was still a really good friend to her. And yeah, I really enjoyed like their relationship, and I feel like that was really what was pulling me through, because horror isn't really like my thing, and I feel like that's why like I'm not really pulled into loving it that much. I feel like there was nothing like super surprising that was like, oh, like this was great, like I need to reread this immediately. Like I think the themes of forgotten Black girls, which is what the journalist Brittany is really trying to focus on, like I liked the themes of that. But as like a horror novel, I don't know, like I didn't really get that pull that made it like a new favorite for me. And so I would definitely give this like 4, maybe 4.5 stars, because it was still like a great story, but I just think that it's not really like my genre, and so like I'm not going to love it, but it was still a really good story. So it is time for me to wrap up this vlog. It is March 1st, which means that it is the end of February and the end of Black History Month. That does not mean that you should stop reading Black books, and that also does not mean that you should stop celebrating Black people in general and understanding our history. But that will wrap up this Black History Month vlog. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Let me know any of the books that you have read for Black History Month. But if you don't want to comment a book that you read for Black History Month, you can also just leave a brown heart emoji, or even just red, black, or green for the African American flag in Palestine, I'm pretty sure. So it represents a lot. But I thank you so much for watching, and I will check in with you in my next video. Bye.